Today, we're looking at a purple ink by Papier Plume Violet. Hi, I'm Adam, and I'm an ink guy. I get inks, test them, and share the results with you. Now, if you like fountain pen ink reviews, I would invite you to subscribe. Also, if you're interested, you can follow me over on Instagram. To make sure I have a range of experience with this ink, I do the writing samples. I then put the ink into this Viscosity Van Gogh with a medium nib. Used it to write for a day and to take my notes for this video. This first writing sample is done on a standardized set of paper of Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia. There are additional writing samples later in the video. Now, let's look at the writing sample. I picked this ink up in sample form, so it comes in a vial like this. And to keep my writing samples consistent, I use a Jinhao 159 with a Goulet 1.1 stub, a Jinhao X450 with a Goulet medium, and a Jinhao X750 with a Goulet extra fine. Let's take a look at the Clairfontaine. We get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen. It does offer some very gentle shading that's going on, like brown starts a little darker, gets a little lighter. Fox goes from darker to lighter to darker. So it is there, it's just very subtle throughout. 7 seconds to dry. Now, medium is about the same tone as the extra fine. It has no feather spread, halo sheen. The shading shows better with the medium than it does with the extra fine. Quick goes from dark to light to dark. Brown goes from dark to light to dark. Fox goes from dark to light to dark. Beautiful. And 9 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both does show color variation. The medium shows it better, and the medium in the writing showed it better. Tomoe River. No bleeding, normal Tomoe River ghosting, actually a little less than normal. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 9 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, but not as dark as the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. 14 seconds to dry. Now the scrubby for both does show some color variation, but I'm not getting it in the writing. And Rhodia. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, and no shade. Extra fine is a whole lot lighter than the stub with no feather spread, halo sheen, no real shading. There's a couple of little bit darker spots. The K in Quick is a little bit darker. The X in Fox is a little bit darker, but that's about it. 5 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, much nicer shading. It's more gentle, there's more of it. Brown starts darker, works its way lighter. Quick is a very dark word, especially when you look at lazy. There's more of it in the medium, but it's very gentle and it's moving. It's dog goes from dark to mid-tone to dark again. Fox is dark at the top, and then as you come up in the F, over to the O, it's a mid-tone to dark at the X. So it's there's more of it, just very gentle. 8 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both does show color variation. More is shown in the extra fine, although we got less in the writing. The medium shows some, and what we see in the scrubby is about how we see it going on in the writing for the medium. I agree with Vita. I've learned a lot by doing multiple chromatographies. The one on the left is done the way it's supposed to be done. I put a line of ink down and immediately put it into water for 10 to 15 seconds. And we see that this pushes straight up. It is a true purple dye. There's nothing else in it. There's no mixture. The one on the right, I let dry for 10 minutes before I dunk it into water. And there's a little bit more of a line on the bottom, but it's starting to bond, but it doesn't seem like it's truly going to stay. Resistance tests are done to see how well this ink can be expected to perform on the page and how hard it may be to clean from your pen. I let the smear dry for 3 days before I test it. Looking at the highlighter, I feel confident using this in a note-taking situation if I wanted to go back and highlight because it's, for the most part, unaffected from being highlighted. Now, water is lifting all of the darkest tones, but not all of the ink, which did surprise me based on the chromatography. pen flush, we do start to see some of the white of the paper coming through. Now that's 30 seconds of pen flush just sitting on the paper. So it's not moving at all, it's not being forced through anything. Pen flush is all that you're going to need to get this out of your pen. 1/3 bleach solution, even though you're not going to need it, it does completely obliterate this. For the inks I've tested, I have found an average viscosity of 2.5, with a realm of normal being from 2.1 to 2.9. Now I'm going to link a video where I show how I test it and how I calculate the data. Papier Plume Violet has a viscosity of 2.78, making it normal. To find my average dry times, I use my writing samples done on Clairfontaine, Tomoe River, and Rhodia paper. I average those, and what I found is the average dry time is 17 seconds, with a realm of normal being from 13 to 21 seconds. Papier Plume Violet has an average dry time of 9 seconds, making this a faster drying ink. Instead of finding inks that look like Papier Plume Violet, I would prefer to find an ink that complements its color on the page. I wanted a nice brown, and I chose Diamine Sepia. The second writing sample was done on TWSBI, Leuchtturm 1917, and 28-pound copy paper. Here we see TWSBI notebook paper. Now we get no bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 has no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. It's just written really sloppy. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 5 seconds to dry. The medium is darker than the extra fine, but not as dark as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, and some decent shading. You see brown starts darker, gets lighter, gets darker again. Same with quick, darker to lighter to darker. It's there, it's just very subtle, but it is constantly there, where Fox starts as a mid and gets dark. 7 seconds to dry. The scrubby for both does show color variation. We really didn't get it in the medium. We did get it in, we didn't get it in the extra fine. We did get it in the medium. And you see there's not a lot of color variation, but that not a lot is very constant back and forth. Leuchtturm 1917. No bleeding, no ghosting. The 1.1 is no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, and 3 seconds to dry. Medium is darker than the extra fine, same tone as the stub, with no feather spread, halo sheen, no shade, 5 seconds to dry. The scrubby of the extra fine shows color variation, although we got none. The medium shows none, and we got none. 28-pound copy paper, last up. So, we do get spots of bleeding that are going on in the medium. It's not really in the extra fine. There is some show through on the medium, but not so much on the extra fine. Just things to keep in mind here. The medium at the top, it has feathering all over it. Tiny feathers the whole way through. There is a little bit of spread. No halo, no sheen, no shade. The extra fine is quite a bit lighter than the medium. It has a lot of feathering the whole way through. Tiny little feathers all the way. There is a little bit of spread because this is an extra fine writing more like a fine. With no halo sheen and no shade, 1 second to dry. The scrubby does show color variation, although we get none, and that is all that I have for the writing sample. So what do I think of Papier Plume Violet? This is a nice dusty purple that gives color variation depending on what pen you put in, and it gives some nice shading in the writing. So what nib and pen do I think is going to give the best writing experience? It's only going to get so dark with wet pens, but I think a dry broad puts down a very pleasant tone. It's really nice, and it really brings out the shading that this ink can do. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, and thanks for watching.